Welcome. This is Ashley's Heart Song, and this is where we nourish the soul, the story, and the science in a sacred rhythm. I am your host, Ashley Torian, and today we are diving into something you've probably said or thought 100 million times in your life, and that is, I just wish I could be more fearless. But I'm going to reframe that for you today. In today's episode, it is about feeling isn't just a frequency, or it's not a feeling. Fearless isn't a feeling, it's more of a frequency. And I am beginning to understand that more and more as I am moving through my own journey through fear. As a child, I was worrywart was my nickname by my sister. Was worrywart. I worried about everything, and that just turned into this fear that I carried with me, and then that led into all the anxiety. If you've heard any of my previous shows, I've shared my story around anxiety, and the fear of eating hit me, and so fear has been a companion of mine throughout most of my life, and maybe yours too. Maybe fear has just decided to jump on your back and it wanted to hit your ride throughout your life. And when those of us who experience fear like that, we look at those people who are what we would call brave, so brave, and we think, wow, if I could just be that way. And what I'm beginning to understand is yes, we can, because it's not that they're not feeling fear, it's that they don't let the fear get in the way of what they want to do. And so, again, I'm seeing that being fearless isn't a feeling of fearlessness, it is a frequency, it's a being, it's a state. And so today we're going to step into that a little more. We're going to experiment with what this idea could really be. Because it's not about not feeling fear, it's about doing it anyway, but stepping into bold faith. I have a friend, and we were traveling together, and she is what I call fearless. And I love watching her in different arenas of her life and watching how she just steps into everything with bold faith. And, there's some things that are kind of fearing, but she's fearless when she shows up for it. Well, we're on this trip and together, and we're at this airport where they have the trains that move you from terminal to terminal, the underground trains. And so we are going to step on one of those, and we're at the back of the line. So it's getting up short, and everybody's starting to scooch in, hurry, 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 and doing it really fast. And the moment she steps across and my foot is stepping over the threshold right behind her, the doors on my side close. I mean, right in my face. It almost catches my foot. I have to just pull it back. And then her doors are slowly closing, and she turns around and she notices that I'm not there. And there's this expression that comes across not only her face, but her body. She becomes the state of fearless. And she reaches her arm through the opening. The doors on her side are closing. She reaches her arm through, barrels her way out, pulls open, forces open the other doors, grabs my arm, and pulls me onto the train with her. And the whole time I am in this awe that she, number one, even did that. And she just didn't go, oh, I'll wait for you. No, not this girl. This girl reaches through. She pulls open and reaches through and grabs. But it was her state. It wasn't that she was showing up just kind of scared and timid and reaching through and grabbing me. No, it was just this boldness that just stepped forward. And that was when it dawned on me that fearless isn't a feeling, it is a frequency, it's a state of operation. It is a boldness of faith that no matter what, I'm pressing on and I am going to get this done. And I have been in that place of fear my entire life. I lived worrying about everything when I was a child. In fact, my older sister, the one that's right up above me, would call me a worrywart. I worried about everything, y'all. And then as I grew up, that worry turned into this anxiety, and the anxiety turned into fear of eating. And if you've watched any of my shows, you know my story. And it's also in my book, Join Me in the End Zone. And inside of that, I've been feeling all this fear and anxiousness and anxiety. And so I've been on this journey of discovering this relationship that I have with fear. And because I have felt it all my life, but then there's people like my friend who just show up with this boldness, this fearlessness, this frequency that doesn't let fear hold them hostage. And it's such a beautiful state to witness, to observe in other people. So these women who move with this fearlessness, it is a flow, it's a beingness, and it isn't that absence of fear, it's that state that they all of a sudden take hold of. So let's talk about this biology of it for a moment. We're going to go a little sciencey because your body plays a huge role in this. And this is what happened with me and many of you who have felt fear in your life. You know what that feels like in your body. When that chemistry flood comes in, flooding you with cortisol and all those other stressy chemicals and those stress hormones, we are biologically pulled away from courage when that happens. And we are steeped in the fight or flight or freeze zone. And that's when we are having that high cortisol. It narrows our vision, it dampens our joy, it makes bold moves feel dangerous. And even when they are really the right moves, we will feel that they are dangerous, terrifying. But once we learn how to regulate our nervous system, when we eat foods that calm cortisol, when we breathe like our body matters, and when we speak kindly, kindly to ourselves, we create a space for that bravery. And then your body starts to believe it's safe enough. It's safe enough to step forward. It's safe enough to be seen. And that's where the real lasting courage, that state of operation of courage, it's a sacred metabolizer that when we step into all of this and our body begins to believe again, because we've nurtured it, we've worked with the emotions that are being sent through. And what I love to do is emotional resolution to help calm that cortisol that's being bathed all throughout our body, but it's about working with it. I have seen it happen time and again with myself, with my clients, at retreats that I hold. The frequency begins to shift, and suddenly we're moving from a more centered yes instead of that panicked, panicked, um, chaotic space of presence. So I want to share another little story with you about how fear came at me and how I decided to set that aside and step forward in bold faith, to step forward in fearlessness. And my story is a little bit different than the one that I shared with you a little earlier because it was before I even recognized this about fearlessness. But it involves that feeling of faith, that state of operation of faith, because faith is also a state of operation. It's another sacred metabolizer. And, we have the simple fears of putting on a retreat, holding an event, and being nervous about that. And the fear that can kind of seep in on that, the self doubt that can step in on that, and how we just step through that with that bold faith. There's that kind of fearlessness. But then there's also the fearlessness that not only me, but several people experience, and that is that all out panic attack, anxiety attack, when everything is so messy, not only on the inside, but on the outside, that you can't see your way through it. And when we all of a sudden are equipped with fearlessness when we're in the midst of that, that is amazing. And I'll never forget the I was driving through the DFW airport going from one client to the next. And I had learned how to live with anxiety at this point. I was just tamping it down. Learned to live with it, pull myself about bootstraps. I'm a Texas girl, and by golly, I was just trudging on. And it wasn't working by any means. But I remember that as I'm driving through there, all of a sudden, a huge anxiety attack, panic attack is what some people call them, flew into me. And very similar to the one that had happened like 5 years before. And I thought, oh, goodness, no, this is not going to happen again. And I had all of a sudden had this flash of everything that I had been working with and reading. And the story that stood out for me in those, of all of the books that I had been reading, Can't Afford the Luxury of a Negative Thought, um, did several Bible studies, did all of these books that I was reading all the time, trying to learn about what was happening with me so it wouldn't happen anymore, so I could be fearless. The story, the book that comes into my mind is the one about the Jesus coming into that city where the woman who is very ill with the blood disease, bleeding disease, and she spent her fortune and she hears that Jesus the healer is coming into town, and by golly, she wants some of that. She wants what he has to offer. And so she goes down there, and she is so weak, and yet in this crowd she sees him coming, and she pushes through the crowd and touches his robe, and immediately she's healed because she believed. She had bold faith. She was fearless of this crowd, this mob that was all around Jesus. She was fearless in stepping in there. And she had bold faith as she reached through and touched his garment. And that was what came into my mind as I am driving through the airport, feeling this anxiety attack wash through me. It was that story. And I went, oh, wow, I can do the same thing. I can show up that way. I can part the clouds. I can reach up to heaven. I can do that. And in bold faith, I can also be released from this anxiety attack. And my next client, I'm driving through the airport, and the next client is about 15, 20 more minutes away. By the time I got to that appointment, I was at peace. I was at ease. I had been fearless. I had stepped forward in bold faith. My eye was on what I wanted, not on what's terrified me, which is how it had been set for the previous 5 years. Was I may have been reading all this stuff, but I was set to that channel of what I was afraid of instead of what I wanted. So are you stepping forward with fearless, being fearless, the frequency of fearless, having your eye on what you want, on what you are wanting to see come to pass, on what you're wanting to make of your life? Is that where your eye is? Or is your eye on what you're afraid of? Because that's the difference between those who are fearless and those who are fearful. What I learned from all of this was that anxiety, the fear, was my greatest teacher. It is that fire that makes you pay attention. So if you're feeling fear right now about something, or anxiety, panic about something, that is the fire that's getting you to pay attention. That your eye is on the wrong thing. Your eye needs to be set on what it is you would love with bold faith. So instead of running from the fear, like I did for so many years, bless it and be fed nourishment of the soul, your mind, your heart, your emotional center. Nourish it with what you would love, and nourish your physical body with magnesium rich foods, with greens, especially herbal teas, and breath. A steady, long, slow, smooth, deep, and even breath. Give this time in your life when you're stepping into this fearless. Give time in your life for the structure, for the stillness. We can't just run away from it. It doesn't go away and we don't get anywhere. We end up staying stuck in the muck, but instead we can step forward and be fearless. Be fearless. So this month, the month that, if you're watching this in the month that it's aired, that's in July. Otherwise, whatever month you're in, choose to be fearless by frequency. Nourish your nervous system with a process that I feel is the best one. It's called emotional resolution. Look it up, contact me, message me on any platform if you would love to begin nourishing your nervous system with MRES. Slow your breathing, learn how to breathe well, to breathe so the gases of your breath, oxygen and carbon dioxide, are leveled and you're not over breathing, creating too much of one. We want to breathe for the nourishment of our physical body, for the expansion of it, and ask, where do I feel the most soul fire, even if it scares me? That's always a really good question to ask. Especially if you're nourishing yourself, you're resolving those emotions, nourishing your soul, resolving the emotions, nourishing your physical body with the foods that bring that lowered cortisol levels. And then if you're breathing, regulating your nervous system through the breath, ask yourself, where do I feel the most soul fire, even if it scares me? And then we take one brave step towards it. Fearless leadership in any arena of your life isn't the loudest voice in the room, it's the calmest one in your body. It's the calmest. Thank you for joining me today. I will see you at the next Armor Up retreat where we practice this in real time. We'll have a link in the comments, or not in the comments, but in the description of this podcast. We will have the link to the Armor Up retreat that is held once or twice a year. We practice these tools in real time and we get you set. We set you up for the rest of your life with your breath, regulating your nervous system through emotional resolution, through nourishing foods, breath work, like I said, and also the song of your heart. Lead your life with energy, heart, and courageous clarity. I am so grateful that you joined me today for this. Be sure and leave a comment below of how this show resonated with you today and share it with your friend, your sister that is also living in that survival mode. I am so grateful for you. I look forward to seeing you on the next podcast. See you then.